In the quiet village, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, Baucis and Philemon lived a life that many might have called humble. Their small wooden house, perched on a rise overlooking the river, was modest and plain. The walls were worn with age, and the roof often groaned under the weight of winter snow. Yet inside there was warmth, laughter, and a love that was rare in the world. Every morning, Philemon would rise before dawn, tending to a small plot of land, planting vegetables, and caring for the few animals they kept. Baucis, with her gentle hands and thoughtful eyes, would rise soon after to prepare breakfast, sweep the floors, and tend to her small garden filled with fragrant herbs and flowers. Life had been hard at times. The village was remote and the work unending, yet the couple found contentment in the smallest things. The laughter of birds at sunrise, the soft hum of the river, the quiet comfort of sharing a meal together. They were not wealthy, nor did they need to be. Their happiness grew from shared smiles, whispered stories in the evenings, and hands that found each other instinctively. Despite their serenity, there was a sense of longing that neither Baucis nor Philemon could entirely name. On quiet nights, as the fire flickered in their modest hearth, Philemon would sometimes gaze at the distant hills and wonder what life might hold beyond the familiar fields. Baucis, sitting across from him with a basket of herbs in her lap, would trace her finger along the grain of the wooden table, feeling a similar, unspoken yearning. It was not for wealth or adventure, but for something ineffable, a glimpse of the extraordinary in the ordinary, a sense that their devotion could somehow be rewarded in ways the eye could not see. One spring morning, as the village stirred to life, a stranger appeared at the edge of the forest. He was cloaked in simple garments that bore the marks of travel, and his eyes held a depth that suggested wisdom beyond measure. The villagers, wary of strangers, kept their distance, but Baucis, ever compassionate, approached him with a gentle smile. She offered him water from her clay jug and bread freshly baked the night before. Philemon, curious but cautious, stood beside her, greeting the stranger with polite nods. The man accepted their offering with gratitude, his eyes glimmering with warmth. He said, "Few offer kindness without expectation. It is rare to find hearts so generous." There was something in his voice that made Baucis and Philemon pause, a subtle weight, as if his words carried not just observation, but insight into their very souls. They spent the day together, tending to the stranger's needs. Baucis shared her food, Philemon brought water from the river, and in return, the stranger spoke of distant lands, of mountains kissed by snow, and rivers that gleamed like silver in the sun. There was no trace of magic or deceit, only a profound sense of peace and understanding that filled the little house, wrapping the couple in a quiet wonder. As the evening approached, the stranger arose, his presence suddenly commanding, yet gentle. He said, "I must continue my journey, but know this: the love you share, the devotion you show each other, and to strangers alike, is rare. It is a light that the world cannot extinguish. Guard it well." When he left, the village seemed unchanged. Yet Baucis and Philemon felt a shift in the air, subtle and profound. They returned to their small tasks, sweeping, tending to the animals, preparing supper, but the memory of the stranger lingered, a gentle whisper in their hearts. For the first time, they began to see the extraordinary in their lives, not in wealth or grand adventures, but in the quiet, unwavering love they shared and the kindness they offered even to strangers. That night, as the fire burned low, Baucis leaned against Philemon's shoulder. She asked, "Do you think we will ever be noticed beyond this village?" Her voice held no bitterness, only wonder. Philemon kissed the top of her hair and whispered, "Perhaps, but even if no one else sees, I do, and that is enough for me." And in the stillness, as the stars began to twinkle over the forest, they felt a sense of completeness, a fragile but enduring certainty that their love, humble though it may seem, was a treasure that could not be measured by the eyes of others.
The months passed, and spring gave way to summer. The village thrived in its quiet rhythms, and Baucis and Philemon continued their simple life, tending to their garden and their animals. Their days were filled with routine, but there was a growing tension in the air, one that no one in the village could explain. Clouds, heavy and dark, gathered more often than usual, and the river that ran past their home, normally gentle and soothing, began to swell with sudden rains. One evening, as Baucis was preparing supper, the wind picked up, rattling the windows and shaking the doors. The trees bent under the force of the storm, and the river roared with newfound power. Philemon rushed outside to secure the animals, calling Baucis to help him tie the livestock to sturdy posts. Rain pelted them like 1,000 tiny stones, drenching them to the bone, but they worked with quiet determination, refusing to be daunted by the storm's fury. As the night deepened, the storm showed no sign of relenting. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the small house in stark, brilliant flashes. Thunder rolled across the hills, shaking the earth beneath their feet. For the first time in their lives, Baucis and Philemon felt true fear, not for themselves, but for the fragile home they had built and for the life they cherished so dearly. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. They exchanged wary glances, unsure if the storm had brought a wandering villager or something worse. Baucis, trembling slightly, opened the door to reveal the same stranger who had visited them months before. His cloak was soaked, and his eyes reflected both wariness and urgency. "May I come in?" he asked. There was no hint of threat in his tone, only a plea for refuge. Without hesitation, Baucis stepped aside, allowing him to enter. Philemon quickly closed the door, bolting it against the storm. They offered him dry clothes, a warm fire, and food. The stranger accepted, and as he warmed himself by the flames, he spoke of things beyond the storm, of the gods who watched over the world, of mortals who suffered and yet endured, and of the delicate balance between mercy and justice. As the hours passed, the couple listened, captivated by his words. There was a strange intimacy in the shared quiet, broken only by the wind's howl and the occasional crack of lightning. Baucis found herself drawn to his calm presence, his gentle manner, and the way he seemed to see the goodness in their hearts without judgment. Philemon, too, felt an unspoken respect for the stranger, recognizing in him a power and wisdom that was rare, yet comforting. In the early hours of the morning, the storm began to subside. The river, now calmer, reflected the first light of dawn. The stranger arose, preparing to leave. "Your kindness has saved more than a traveler tonight," he said softly. "It has shown the world that love and devotion still exist in quiet places. Remember this, always." Before he could leave, Philemon stepped forward, grasping the stranger's hands. "Who are you really, and why do you speak of such things as if you know the world's secrets?" The stranger smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. "I am no one you will know by name, but I am someone who watches and sometimes intervenes. And now I leave you with a choice. Continue in your quiet life as you have, or embrace the extraordinary that may come to you if only you remain steadfast in love and kindness." With that, he stepped back into the morning mist, disappearing as suddenly as he had arrived. Baucis and Philemon stood in silence, feeling the echo of his words reverberate through their souls. The storm had passed, but it had left a mark, a reminder that their love, tested by the harshness of the world, was stronger than any fear or uncertainty. Hand in hand, they watched the sun rise over the hills, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together.
Life in the small village carried on much as it always had. quiet, routine, and simple. Baucis and Philemon lived humbly, tending their little garden and their few animals, sharing love and laughter in a world that seemed indifferent to their goodness. Yet the memory of the stranger who had appeared during the storm lingered in their minds. Sometimes at twilight, they would glance at the horizon and wonder if the gods truly walked among mortals, hidden in human form. One day, as the sun warmed the fields and the wind whispered through the trees, two travelers appeared at the edge of the village. They were strangers, weary from a long journey, dressed plainly, with tired eyes that carried the weight of distant roads. Most villagers turned them away, unwilling to offer food or shelter. But Baucis, with her gentle nature, welcomed them with a warm smile. Philemon, always cautious but trusting, stood beside her, offering what little they had, a loaf of bread, a small jug of wine, and a place to rest by their modest fire. The couple noticed how hungry and tired the travelers were. Baucis insisted they wash their feet in a basin of water she prepared, and Philemon brought plates of vegetables and herbs from their garden. There was no hesitation, no thought of reward, only genuine care. The travelers accepted the hospitality with gratitude, but there was a glimmer in their eyes that seemed almost otherworldly. They spoke sparingly, their voices calm and measured, yet every word carried a quiet weight, as if the world itself listened. That evening, Baucis and Philemon shared their simple meal with the travelers. The bread, though modest, was warm and nourishing. The wine, though scant, seemed richer than any they had tasted before. And when Philemon poured the wine, he noticed something strange. No matter how much he served, the jug never seemed to empty. At first, he thought it a trick of the light, a reflection of their fatigue. But the truth slowly revealed itself. The travelers were no ordinary mortals. When the meal ended, one of the travelers spoke softly. "Baucis, Philemon, your kindness has not gone unnoticed. Many in this village have turned away those in need, but you opened your hearts without thought of gain. For this you are blessed." The words seemed to shine in the warm glow of the fire, touching their hearts deeply. Baucis felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, and Philemon's chest swelled with pride and awe. The travelers revealed themselves fully then, lifting their robes to show the splendor beneath. They were gods, Hermes and Zeus, visiting the mortal world to test humanity. The couple fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the revelation, but the gods smiled gently. "Fear not, your hearts are pure, your love steadfast. You have shown the world what few ever do, that true goodness is rare and precious." Before departing, the gods warned of the impending judgment. The village, corrupted by greed and selfishness, would face destruction. Only those who lived in true virtue, those who had shown generosity and love, would be spared. Baucis and Philemon, holding hands tightly, realized the magnitude of their actions. They had lived humbly, loved deeply, and now the world itself would test the worth of their devotion. That night, as they lay in bed, the words of the gods lingered. "We must be ready for what is to come," Philemon whispered. Baucis nodded, her hand finding his in the darkness. "Whatever happens, we face it together," she replied, her voice steady but tender. Dawn broke with a strange stillness. The village, once lively with children's laughter and merchants' calls, was silent. The sun rose over empty streets, and the air was heavy with the smell of smoke and ruin. The gods' warning had come true. The greed and cruelty of the villagers had summoned their punishment, and the homes around Baucis and Philemon lay in ruin. Only the modest cottage of the humble couple remained untouched, standing as a small sanctuary amidst the devastation. Baucis and Philemon stepped outside, hands entwined, looking over the empty streets with sorrow. Their hearts ached for neighbors who had refused kindness, yet they felt a strange sense of peace. They had loved, shared, and lived without greed, and their devotion had been recognized by forces far greater than themselves. The gods appeared once more, radiant and imposing. Baucis, Philemon, Zeus said, his voice like distant thunder softened by warmth, "You have honored us through your generosity. For this you shall be granted a wish, anything your heart's desire." Baucis looked at her husband, tears glimmering in her eyes. "All I wish," she said softly, "is to remain by his side, in life and whatever comes after." Philemon's voice trembled with emotion. "And I wish the same. Nothing else matters but being together." The gods smiled, touched by the depth of their devotion. "So it shall be," Hermes replied. "You will live long lives together, never separated, and when the time comes, you shall be together forever, even in form." Years passed, and Baucis and Philemon lived in their small cottage, tending their garden, sharing meals, and cherishing each day. Their love, quiet and steadfast, grew stronger with each passing season. When the end of their mortal lives approached, the gods appeared once more. In a gentle, radiant light, they transformed the couple into two intertwined trees, an oak and a linden, rooted together, branches entwined forever. Travelers who passed the hill would see the trees and sense the deep love within them. The legend of Baucis and Philemon endured, a reminder that true kindness and devotion are treasured above all, and that love, when pure and steadfast, can transcend even death. And so the couple remained, together, eternal, their hearts beating in harmony, whispering the quiet, enduring message that goodness and love are the greatest treasures a mortal life can hold. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life love and emotional stories. Your support helps us bring more meaningful stories to life. Heart.